Good morning, Dhanavad Pranam, everyone, from Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Math, West London, the Bhakti Yoga Institute. We are delighted to have Kishori Devi here and Sudarshan Prabhu, and we're continuing with our Saranagati Immersive session 2 this morning. Before we start, I did want to add something that I failed to mention yesterday. There's lots of devotees that we want to express our heartfelt gratitude to.
Yes.
But I do have to really express how grateful we are to Kelly Kadambananandini and Abhinavasundar Prabhu. Really, they have put in so much thought and care and affection into this program. And there's so many things that are going on behind the scene that are unseen, and a lot of intention and effort. And we're just so grateful. We're grateful to have them. We're grateful to you, and we're grateful for everyone that's here and online. And we feel connected to you all, and so happy to be here together to hear these divine words of our beloved masters.
Thank you. That is true. Thank you, Pandita. Very good call to thank Abhinav Prabhu and Kili Kadamanana. And always, I look around the room and I see actually Josh or the Guru. I see very dedicated people, and I'm always feeling humbled by what we somehow have come in connection with.
Can you speak a little louder?
Yes, I'll speak louder. Somehow we're all at the feet of our great masters, our divine masters, who have come, really, we can see it very, very clearly now, have come into this plane of experience, this world that we live in, only for the purpose of helping us to navigate and choose our highest fortune. The soul has such high potential, and we hear the expression. Sometimes we read the songbook and there's one expression that says, the fortunate souls are diving deep into the ocean of nectar, and the unfortunate non-devotees are remaining on the surface. And the devotees of the Lord are feeling like existence itself is full of nectar. And they're looking at us scrambling with our little external mindset and our small trivial cares and worries and our tiny little dreams and going like, you're missing it. The whole thing is full of nectar and you're missing it. And by their grace, really, only by their grace, we have some opportunity to contemplate these things and to actually make a course within reality. One of the great mysteries of consciousness is that consciousness does not exist without free will. So, Guru Maharaj says, the term free will and the term consciousness are synonymous. So that's a wonderful thing. It's also a very heavy thing because it means we have great responsibility. And ultimately it means that we have architected where we are. And as we talked about yesterday, consciousness really is what's existing. So we're navigating this universe of consciousness, and we really don't know what we're doing. And we're building patterns within ourselves, consciously or unconsciously, right? Intentionally or non-intentionally. And we've ultimately constructed this being that we are, with all of its flaws and all of its, anything that is wayward or misaligned. And that's one of the fundamental principles of the practice of Saranagati. Srila Sridhar Maharaj, if you read Guru Maharaj's books or if you watch the videos, one of the verses that you'll hear quoted most often is Tattenu kampam susamikshimano bhunjane vatmakritam vipakam hridvag vapur bhir vitadhan namaste jivete yo mukti pade sadaya bhak. This verse is from Srimad Bhagavatam, it's Bhagavat Purana, and it's actually spoken by Lord Brahma in Brahma Vimohana Lila, where Lord Brahma is confused by the Lord. But Guru Maharaj quotes this verse a lot. And it's very important for, I feel, it's very important for devotees within the Mat. To the extent possible, not everybody's like a shloka memorizer, but to the extent possible, we have to know the shloka. It's very, very, very fundamental to the practice of actual intentional spiritual life and building a relationship with the life that we find ourselves in, with the Lord at the center of it. And I'm talking about this verse now because we're talking about consciousness and free will. And one of the fundamental practices of Saranagati, because Saranagati has a practicing life, is Tattenu kampam sushimikshimano, on the one beginning basis of when I find myself in a difficult circumstance, when I find myself having problems with my environment, Guru Maharaj is saying, the first thing I should think is, I'm at fault. And sometimes when you're in a particular situation, it's really difficult to think I'm at fault, right? Because you can immediately build an entire, you could go to court and argue the case of why I'm not at fault. Why it's generally Abhinava's fault, actually, for the most part. So in this amazing book, there's a foreword by Srila Guru Maharaj. It's in English. It's very short. As I said yesterday, I truly believe it is the greatest philosophical treatise ever written on this planet. And I'm a person who has read a lot of what school calls philosophy. It's not really philosophy. Philosophy is a search for truth, is what the meaning of it is. But truth is very hard to come by. And Srila Guru Maharaj explains our position and our prospect very, very clearly and very, very succinctly in this wonderful foreword. And ultimately everything is leading to Saranagati, to Prapanna, this mood of flexibility and trust in our relationship with reality. So the beginning of the foreword is to say, we are endowed with free will. And then secondly, is to say we are navigating consciousness with our free will. And it's helpful to understand what the possibilities of consciousness are. So we find ourselves surrounded by the energies of the Lord. And that is, this fabric of diversity that's built upon Brahman. Guru Maharaj is saying the basis of everything is divine energy, and then there's this fabric of diversity and variety that's built upon it. And you can improperly interact with that fabric, and that conscious plane is called bhukti. Okay? Bhukti means I'm at the center and I want things to happen how I want them to happen. Okay? And we are, born into these bodies, and we're perpetuating this pattern of imposition upon reality. And as we talked about yesterday, one of the key things to understand from Gita is that we have choice and we have intention. So as we do that, we have to realize that we're intentionally doing that. And, we can get so caught up in our body and our mind and our urges that we lose a sense of intention. We almost feel like we're getting tumbled and helplessly following these things. But actually, the only thing that can give energy to these patterns we find ourselves in is us. We were kind of establishing that yesterday. The only thing that can give energy for that, and you have control over your energy and your determination. You're pushing it somewhere, right? You have dridha, Krishna's saying in Gita. You have determination. And whether you know it or not, you're placing it somewhere. Mm-hmm. You're perpetuating a particular relationship with reality. So when we have this relationship with reality, we have different patterns of behavior that are building up in us, and that's called samskara. Okay, in Sanskrit, that's called samskara. And samskara means these different amalgamations of all of your previous lifetimes that have led you up to be what you are right now. Okay? And what's one of the most fascinating things is we don't understand our own samskara. Okay? Sometimes I've heard devotees explain, okay, how are we in this world, right? And one of the explanations is, hey, you chose to be here, and you chose to explore reality. You didn't choose to serve reality, and now you're suffering the consequences of that. And one of the questions is, why would I do that? If I knew I could serve the Lord, why would I choose to totally exploit his reality? And the answer is now you know that you can serve the Lord, and now you know you're exploiting his reality, and you're still doing it. So it was like that. Right? It's because you think back at this almost time immemorial, and you're like, let's see, what am I going to do here? Am I going to exploit? But actually, it's now. There's only now, and you're still doing it. So we have to take responsibility. I'm doing this. And we have to take responsibility for where I want to go. I don't want to do that. And the thesis of Saranagati, the premise, the structure of the relationship that we're trying to cultivate is that the whole environment is actually populated by the higher energy of the Lord. We can interact with that lower energy, but the higher energy is actually at the basis. And the higher energy wants to help you. So when we are making this journey towards Saranagati, we're resetting our relationship with the experiences and circumstances of our life. And Srila Guru Maharaj is saying, the fundamental instruction is tatenu kampam susamikshmano bhunjane vatmakritam vipakam. So when we're resetting our relationship, we're saying this environment that is occurring by the grace of the Lord and by the mercy of the service energy is good for me. This circumstance is good for me. And if I have a problem with it, now I know what my problem is. And this is the basic practicing life. And this verse was spoken in a wonderful circumstance by Lord Brahma himself, and it's in a series of actually extremely beautiful verses. If anyone wants to read those verses where Lord Brahma is finally humbled by the Lord and feels his humility. So many important verses. In fact, the first verse that Mahaprabhu accepts in his conversation with Ramananda Rai, which is Gyane Priyasa Mudapasina Manta Eva, that's also spoken by Lord Brahma in that conversation. Very, very wonderful prayers. And of course our sampradaya, as everyone knows, is Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya. So ultimately our sampradaya is going to Lord Brahma. He's a great devotee. And in his circumstance, you know, he's kind of noticing the soul of Aghasura. He's like, when Krishna kills Aghasura, Aghasura's soul goes into the cosmos and then comes back down and enters into Krishna. And Lord Brahma's like, what was that? And he notices this, and he is like struck by like, what just happened there? And he, you know, comes to the earth and he's observing Lord Krishna, and he sees a little boy, you know, getting pulled around by, you know, cows and rolling in the dirt and playing with his friends, and he's astounded, because his only relationship with divinity is through Mahavishnu. And he's in a state of awe, you know, with Lord Vishnu. And then he sees the Lord playing with his friends in the body of a small boy, and, you know, wrestling and getting pulled around by the cows. And sometimes his friends are beating him in wrestling. Lord Brahma's,
with his left hand.
yeah, eating food with the wrong hand, you know. And Lord Brahma was like, what is that? So he's like, let me see who this is, right? And he plays his tricks and takes all the cows and the cowboys. We know the story. And, you know, later the Lord reveals his potency and is populating all the, you know, Vrindavan again and everything. And Lord Brahma is humbled. And in that state of humility, he says this prayer. And Tate anukampam susamikshmano bhanjane vatmakritam vipakam hridvagva purbir vidadhan namaste. Guru Maharaj is saying, the first relationship, when I have an issue with life, when I have an issue with my circumstance, when I have an issue with my environment, there's two things that I should always think. Because remember, Saranagati is resetting our relationship from one of suspicion to one of trust. In the animalistic mindset, we have a suspicious nature, and we think, if I don't protect myself, no one will protect me. And I need to make sure that this guy's not cheating me, and this thing won't hurt me, and I don't get unfairly, you know, treated in this circumstance, and we always have to be on the lookout. But Saranagati is saying, no, it's all coming from my master, and I trust him. So when we find ourselves in a position in life, Guru Maharaj is saying, whatever circumstance we find ourselves in, we should see his grace, and we should see our own fault. And this is the great gift. Because when we start to examine ourselves, you know, the pattern that we've built over innumerable lifetimes, all these samskaras, we cannot decipher them. What's so amazing to think about is that we're so, you know, like I want to like physically like twist myself up. Like we're so twisted up in all these different conflicting and many times irrational ways of being that we can't undo all of the ways that we've twisted ourselves up. We don't even know the ways that we've twisted ourselves up. We just find ourselves all twisted up, right? And, you know, there's a beautiful verse where it says, oh my gosh, what's the one where it says Krishna's a doctor?
Krishna Jagatera Guru, Krishna Vanchakalpat, isn't it?
Yeah, it's in that song. Anyways, there's a beautiful song called Guna Kirtan, which is talking about the qualities of the Lord by Bhaktivinoda Thakur. It says, Krishna Jagatera Guru, Krishna Vanchakalpataru. Krishna is the guru of the universe, and Krishna is the desire tree. Navikose bhava parabare. And he will help us to navigate this world that we have of misrelationship, of broken relationship. He will help us. So we always have to be seeing how he helps us. And we have to understand we are misaligned in ways we don't understand, and we are going to get cured in a way that we may not understand. It is always going to be in relationship with the Lord. So we were speaking yesterday about one aspect of misalignment that we might notice in ourselves, and I always use bitterness because Guru Maharaj used this example of bitterness. But like if you notice that you have a problem with bitterness, like just because you know that doesn't mean that you have the understanding of how to remove that within yourself, right? And Guru Maharaj says, by so many different practices of tapasya and yoga and trying to control your mind, he said, you can spend lifetimes just working on removing bitterness from your consciousness. But actually what Guru Maharaj is saying, in Saranagati, whatever is unwanted within you, when you actually live your life in that type of flexible way, depending upon the mercy of the Lord, all the circumstances in your life will remove what is poisonous and bitter within you very naturally. So this is like the essential practice. I find myself in a circumstance and I find that I have a problem with this circumstance. My first relationship will be, the problem is within me and my Lord is graceful. That's the essential practice of life. My problem is within me and my Lord is graceful. And we are going to stop this relationship of fear and running. So generally, when we find ourselves in a problem, in a situation that we have a problem with, we want to get out of that situation. And for me, like one of the wonderful things that's been helpful for me in my life is to realize that the problem is within me. Because what I found is that I can look at other devotees and I can see that if they are in a similar circumstance as that, they don't have a problem with it. So what does that mean? What our ego is saying is, this circumstance is the problem. I'm fine, right? The Bahiranga, the external facing ego is going to say, this circumstance is the problem. I'm great, and I need to change the circumstance. That's going to be the default of the materialistic ego. The circumstance is the problem. I'm great. Guys, I'm great. Okay? And why does no one see this? I'm great. The circumstance is the problem. Right? Right? It's like that's what we're going to do. But you can see another devotee who would be in that same circumstance and they're fine. So then you're going to say, oh, okay. I have to adjust. There's something in me that has to adjust. And you can almost think of it as a conscious internal posture. It's like the ego is going to immediately say, okay, the external circumstance is what has to change. The devotional creeper is going to say, no, you got to change. And then the ego is going to say, are you insane? I have to change? That's madness. I'm great, remember? And then you're going to say, no, you have to change. And instead of having this mood of, like, when we're faced with something we don't like, I don't know if anybody else has experienced this, but I'm sure we all have. Sometimes your mind is going to go like, okay, how can I change this? How can I change this? How can I change it? Oh, I can't change it. Guru Maharaj called that surrounded by karma. There's a point where you realize, I can't change this circumstance. And then you're going to go, okay, I got to leave. I got to get out. Let's see, I can go to Portugal. I could, right, like. Oh oh, maybe I just need to get rid of this person. Would that work? That might work. That would actually might possibly work. You want to like change it. You want to get out. You want to, oh, I can't get out. I can't go to Portugal. Maybe I can get drunk. Maybe I can watch a movie or play a video game or do something to take my mind off it. That's what I need to do. Right? Every escape mechanism comes into the mind. I don't want to deal with this. I'm going to change it. I'm going to leave. I'm going to disassociate, take my mind and literally just put it in the, in the freezer for a minute or whatever. All these things will come up because the ego, that thing that we say we want, oh, if I could only give up my false ego. Krishna's like, okay, here you go. And you're like, no, actually, this is wrong. The ego is going to want to perpetuate itself, and the ego wants to stay alive. And the ego knows by this practice it's going to get killed. So it's going to scramble and scramble and scramble. But we have to take an internal posture that is different than the one we've taken. Generally, when we're faced with something we don't like, we try to turn away and run away. And Priyananda Didi used the term that Guru Maharaj uses, which is called Bahirmukha. And Bahirmukha means, Mukha means face, and Bahirmukha means, Bahir means away or outwardly. It means to turn away. And that Bahirmukha is a very strong aspect of our materialistic ego. We have to turn away from the Lord ultimately. But internally, we're actually trying to take a new position. That what is coming toward me in life, I'm going to not be covered up, not be turning away. I'm going to look at it. I'm going to feel the fear. I'm going to feel the trepidation. I'm going to feel the frustration, whatever it might be. I'm going to feel it, and I'm going to endure it and go into it in faith in my Lord, in total faith in my Lord. He has given this to me, and I trust him, and I'm going to go into it. And these things that we can't even examine ourselves to even understand what they are will be washed away. That's the teaching of Srila Guru Maharaj. The things that you don't even understand that are misaligned within yourself will be washed away. And your entire perspective on reality will become broader and deeper. And ultimately, Guru Maharaj is saying, this practice will lead to the 4 verses in Bhagavatam, right, that Krishna is saying to Uddhava Gita, right, which is Bhidyate Hridaya Grantish, the end of it. In the end, you will find Bhidyate Hridaya Grantish, all these things that have been binding your heart, binding your consciousness will be loosened. And Chidyante Sarva Sankshaya, Kshiyante Chasya Karmani Mayit. Like, how does Guru Maharaj phrase this? You will find yourself in a broad and deep and free land.
Yeah.
So, we are we're listening to the best news possible, which is we don't have to do all this ourselves, right? You can't ultimately really figure all these things out. And this position of trusting the Lord, this position of going through what I find myself surrounded by and trusting Him, is the most fundamental position. You know, there's a wonderful actual section here in sermons, which in a chapter which is called "The Guardian Ruled Family," which is the most wonderful chapter. But Srila Sridhar Maharaj in that chapter says, all our situations in life occur by His grace. And we always have to remember this. You know, the thing that we're seeking is seeking us. And the circumstances we find ourselves in are beneficial. They're beneficial to our ultimate salvation. I don't know if you have anything to add to that, Ryan.
Sounds like confidence in His protection.
Yes?
Just saying. I think for me, trying to find these points in the different scriptures is always what I find kind of energizing. Like, where's the expression of this happening? And what happens when a soul turns into what has been given to them, right? What is the outcome of that? And you can start to find that there's actually like patterns, right? Patterns indicate something, right? It means that it's actually a law of the universe, right? So like what seemed like chaos and very random, if you find a pattern in it, means that there's an operating system underneath everything. And I think it was Carl Jung, he said, actually, what we're not making laws, but we're discovering them. And so it's a very interesting thing where you're starting to go, well, if this is a pattern of the universe, which it is, well, what is the expression of that? And for me, one of the first expressions of that is the story of King Parikshit, right? Not only does he come from, like, speaking of, like, you know, amazing different lineages, right? Like, he has the lineage, right? You know, he's related to the Pandavas. And in a historic time period right after, like, this great war where Bhagavad Gita has been spoken, right? So, like, we can't imagine the kind of pressure that he has to live up to, and he does, right? He's known as a saintly king in that time period, which is, the bar is so high. And somehow or other on his journey, you know, we know the story, he wanders into where this great sage is, and I think the sage is in meditation, and somehow he's overcome. And it's very helpful, I think, also because the story of Parikshit is, he's well known to be not only a just king, but a spiritual, theistic, and magnanimous type of king, right? This is not some tyrant that's terrorizing the locals, right? This is, like, at that point in time, this is the great Bhartavarsha, you know, like, this is the center of the whole world. And all of these people, right, when the person who's ruling the land, everyone has abundance, right? So this is like a very abundant time period that is expressed, like the land is reciprocating, the people are reciprocating. And he becomes overcome in this moment of being annoyed that he is not given like a cup of water, and takes this snake and puts it around this yogi's neck, or this sage's neck. And so this is kind of like debated where, why would he do that? And I think in our own lives sometimes it's like, why are we doing some of, you know, like, you can be, and it even says in Gita, you can, the different modes of nature, they can sweep you up, right? Like, there are these moments where all of a sudden, you know, like, you kind of look back, like, who was that, you know, did this thing? So then, you know, he leaves, and the sage's son comes and is, like, full of anger, right? Like, who does this to this kind of person? And then there's an extremely significant point, right? So then this son of the sage, he curses Parikshit. Yeah, you're the king of the world, and this is your behavior? Like, there will be a snake that will come and bite you, and you'll leave your body within a period of time. 7 days. And so now imagine we're confronted with the most dramatic situation, right? Because there's this fantasy game that we're all engaging in, which is like, death is like really far away in some unknown time period. And like, you know, and I'm negotiating hard. Like I had green juice this morning, you know, like, you know, and there's this like strange, forgetful kind of world, you know. Now we know why, like, ultimately there's two directives: always remember him and never forget him, because there's this strange forgetfulness that's permeating our lives. You know, we forget who we are every night. We forget what we're actually doing here. We forget that we're a soul. We forget so many layers, infinite levels of forgetfulness are washing over us all the time, and you're just kind of getting like bound by these things, right? So very importantly, Parikshit is in this circumstance where the environment has revealed to him the timeline. And I don't know the Sanskrit, but it's a very amazing part of Bhagavatam where Parikshit responds, he goes, you don't have to delay 7 days. It can be right now. So now you're starting to see the quality of the person. And this is very important for us, because when adversity is coming to us, all of a sudden, like, all the monsters are in the mirror, like, really bright, right? You'll see whether you're actually humble. You'll see whether you can tolerate something. You'll see so many things. Now you can see them. You couldn't see them before. And you also see the quality of what's in someone's heart, right? So it's like we're saying, oh, like, if you can surrender to the Lord, you can become fearless. Well, what happens when this person's confronted with the ultimate situation? Okay. And then an immediate, he doesn't go back to the sage to negotiate for like extra time. An immediate embracing of his circumstance, right? And then what happens from that? This is like the important part. The entire Bhagavatam manifests itself for everyone else to hear. So then you're going, what happens when a soul embraces exactly what's coming to them, no matter that he was overcome for even a moment, acted completely out of his regular pattern for that to happen, right? Then he embraces it all the way. Yes, I've made some error. Lord, what should I do? And immediately, like, the most mysterious personality, Sukadeva Goswami, arrives on the scene. And then, not just that, but the who's who of the universe. Because these people all exist, right? You know, we're in such a forgetful, clouded state.
Yeah.
It seems like, who is Narada Muni? Who is Lord Brahma? Who are these intergalactic beings that are spending their life? See, who are these Mahajans? Right? As Gurudev would say, he said, the Mahajans are service indicators of the universe. Right? They're doing something all day. They're quite busy. All of a sudden, the to-do list has disappeared. And all of these beings are like, oh, something wonderful is occurring. And instead of like this lamentation, oh, the king of the whole world is going to be gone, every single personality has become heightened. You know, like you think about, you know, where our attention finally gets like grabbed. So the attention of the most important people in the universe has somehow or other been captured. Can you imagine if you're thinking, I'm only alive for 7 days, like you are focusing. You finally lock in, you know, after all these lifetimes. But we're all heading to that moment. Why aren't we locking in? Why aren't we remembering anything? So then you're going, the Lord is so amazing by arranging these strange, peculiar circumstances. And if only I can find some transformation of what happens, there's like a ripple effect. So not only is it wonderful, King Parikshit, not only is it amazing that Sukadeva Goswami, who's a self-realized soul from the start, right? Why is he coming into the world? Because the actual, like the pastimes of the Lord are so joyous that they're pulling him out from his self-realization, right? You know, it's like, how wonderful is the Lord? How beautiful must be the Lord? How amazing must be the Lord that these type of people, they're all feeling like this strange sensation of falling short, right? All of these people, so many unlimited hours of contemplating, of service, of meditation, of condensed thoughts. And they're still feeling like, oh, how can I try to tell you how merciful he is. He must be very merciful. So then, right, then what's happened? So then not only is Parikshit there, not only are these other beings there, but this most wonderful scripture ripples into the reality that we exist in. That's what happens when one soul is embracing their circumstance, right? Because we're all a bit more connected than we realize. That's what, Upadeshamrita, right? They're saying one person who's actually, imbibing these qualities can liberate the world, right? So there is a ripple effect. And we know that, right? We can see there's stories of great teachers imbibing no resistance to the Lord's will. And what's coming from that is like this candle that's within so many souls is just like going on fire. It's possible, right? Just one person is having some realization on the nature of the Lord, and there's like a riptide that can happen as a result, And it's happened through all of history. That's what we call a saint, right? That's that person who boldly proclaims the truth and sets fire to the people that are existing in whatever locale they're in. And all of a sudden it's just like, do you remember any of this? And it's like, yes. Yeah, because it is like, it's that word coming to home. It's coming to like what is natural. So it is natural to actually remember how wonderful the Lord is. It is like your own nourishment is there in where your home is. Your own expression of feeling, some strange sensation of being seen, you could say. Right? Because they're saying, Om Tad Vishnu Paramam Padam Sarapashyanti. He is like the sun observing absolutely everything that's occurring. Right? And then you think because there's some notion that happens in a fractured faith where I'm outside of that. Right? I'm somehow or other not connecting and reciprocating. Not possible. Ultimately not possible. Right? His grace, his view is on everything. And so then Guru Maharaj's own words in page 108 of Centennial Anthology. This anomalous circumstance that has come to me, from another angle of vision, it may be seen that his grace is there. So that same thing that I was running away from and that I was avoiding, that was exactly what I didn't want, has now become the stepping stone for the new person that I'm being and becoming. And if we can proceed forth into that, who knows what kind of ripple effect that can have, right? Because there is that kind of transformative effect. And that's the essential part in really every story, is that type of motion that's occurring. That's where devotion is actually occurring. And that's actually what is being expressed by these deep sadhus of of a caliber that's worshipable and rememberable, right? Guru Maharaj's own words in sermons, the saints are standing like pillars of faith, asserting that this is possible and this is real. And just by remembering the stories of their own lives, our own faith is actually getting healed. That's how important it is. And you're thinking these different kinds of, at first it can seem kind of vague. What are these different kinds of practices? Why would it be helpful to see the grace in the situation that I'm in and the adjustment in myself? How is that a helpful practice? And then you're hearing the stories of people in imminent danger. Imminent danger. Well, we're all in imminent danger, right? And even if we go to lots and lots of different therapy to deal with the traumas of the past, there will be other things coming in our future that we have not dealt with yet. That's the place that we're born into. It's birth, death, old age, and disease. These are traumatic, okay? So there's other traumas that are on the horizon, and they're only viewed as traumas unless there's something transformative and wonderful about them, right? Because otherwise they're just kind of taking us down, and we just kind of keep on getting hit by the different things that are occurring in our lives. Really. So you'd think like, okay, well, Prahlad Maharaj has a father that's trying to murder him. That sounds pretty traumatic. Like the person that's supposed to be your guardian, right, is trying to hurt you. That's called a betrayal of the highest order, right? And the malevolence of being betrayed, sometimes they say humans can actually go through like the most dark circumstances, but something about betrayal where we actually brush with evil, that's actually where humans have a very difficult time digesting. That's possible. So betrayal is like an even more difficult thing for humans to go through. Yes, we go through very difficult things as a part of just going through life, but somehow or other betrayal like really makes it difficult on the mental system.
Perceived betrayal, yeah.
Yeah, perceived betrayal. Right? And then you go Krishna Mata, Krishna Pita, Krishna Dana Pran. Right? He's actually at the root of everything. He is your mother, he is your father, and he is the heart of your life. He's the love of your life. Krishna Dana Pran. Right? Like he's your own like core of everything. And Prahlad Maharaj can see that. And we worship him and celebrate him and remember this story endlessly because it's so glorious that he is remembering, not only is he seeing that the Lord is in all circumstances and has no problem with it, but the first thing that he asks for, to everyone's shock, is please have mercy on my own father, who has terrorized everyone, who has tried to harm him, right? And it's not a performative moment. Mercy can actually be an expression of going through any kind of circumstance. That's amazing, right? Like that's actually who he is, some expression of that. And these things transform everyone. All the demigods, all these different kinds of self-realized souls, they're all astonished by it as well, right? And then it becomes, like chamatkara in a sense, this idea of like so like wondrous, like how is it possible that this can come out of someone's heart? Mm-hmm. So this is the essentialness, and it can be traced in every single story if we're looking for it, that this expression of Saranagati in these different wonderful illuminating jewels, they have an effect not only on your own practical life and onto everyone else and healing your own faith, but also in the laying of the positive pathway forward.
What do you?
So.
Jai, very nice. Hare Krishna. I'm not sure if there's any comment or question, but we can talk a little bit about this freedom of consciousness that we have, if there is, if there's not. Okay. So, in the beginning of Prapanda Jivanavatam, Guru Maharaj is saying there's choices that the soul has to make. And generally, you can summarize the choices in two conscious planes. One is bhakti and one is mukti. And those choices, those consciousness, you could say, like tinges of those of the consciousness of bhakti and the consciousness of mukti permeate our existence. And we've got to start, the advice is to start to look inside yourself and try to perceive where that is. There's a holistic, integrated existence that's possible, that the practice of bhakti takes you to. Holistic and integrated. The entire fabric of life and reality can be embraced and felt as wondrous. But there are tinges of misalignment. And so bhakti means exploitation. Exploitation means it needs to do what I want. So this is the basis of taking responsibility in our life is to understand that we're making choices all the time. And it's really hard to do that. It's really like, it sounds very straightforward, but it's not. Am I choosing bhakti? Bhakti means I need to arrange everything as I want it to, and everything has to be as I want it to. I'm the center of this reality I find myself in, and everything around me needs to arrange itself in the way that I want it to. And if it doesn't, it's bad. Okay? Can we trace that consciousness in ourselves somewhere? I'm guessing yes. But we have to do it when we're navigating our life. Am I doing that right now? Am I thinking, oh, I need to have it like this, and I need to have it like that, and I need to blah, blah, blah. That's bhakti. And whenever you're doing that, you're choosing bhakti. When you finally reach the point where you don't like how the environment is, you finally reach the point where you don't like what's happening to you, where you finally reach the point where there maybe some reactions of what you've put out there are coming back to you, and you think, you know what? I quit. I'm done. How do I get out of here? How does this end? I am finished. That's mukti. And it can also be, like something as simple as like I'm losing the chess game and I quit or something much bigger, which is like I'm done with this whole thing called life and I need to like go into the oneness, right? This bigger picture. Both of those consciousness are mukti. And even in the most smallest way, we have mukti consciousness. And in the smallest way, we have bhakti consciousness. And also very big way, like this is where I want to go or this is where I want to go. And bhakti and mukti have to be removed from us. And Guru Maharaj says, if bhakti and mukti are removed, the only thing that's left in the soul is bhakti. Bhakti is the natural state. It's not something foreign that you're imposing upon yourself. It's not something that you need to gather up and make yourself familiar with it. It's naturally who you are. What's actually unfamiliar and diseased is bhakti and mukti. So as we, deal with life, understanding that we are within a paradigm where we're choosing bhakti and mukti is very important. And I want to read this passage from Srila Sridhar Maharaj because the journey to removing bhakti and mukti is coming from the Lord and from his devotees. And ultimately, we're to see that the environment is populated by his service energy. Ultimately, we're to see that Radha and Krishna, or Sri Radha, in her energy, is behind the creation of everything. And to willingly turn to contribute and serve that. And a very beautiful passage, Guru Maharaj is quoting this is actually page 1 of this amazing book. And honestly, I mean, I just appreciate these things so much because there's the first 3 pages of this book, I really seriously feel if that's all you had, there was a cataclysm and there was 3 pages left, on Earth, and it was these 3 pages, you'd be good. you have the roadmap to life. It's so good, so compact. So I'm reading now from Srila Sridhar Maharaj. Nothing external is required for our success. The only thing required of us is that we dismantle the ego's cover. The ego is collecting foreign elements. That foreign collection box must be dissolved and finished. And then in our innermost hearts, we shall find our connection with the fundamental plane of loving service to the organic whole. There's a beautiful phrasing from Guru Maharaj, because organic means living. Reality is alive. You're not in connection with something dead. You're alive, fully alive. And the Lord's energy is fully alive. And you have the possibility of connecting with a very dynamic life. Not only possibility, the natural state. Both enjoyment and renunciation are abnormal. Enjoyment means bhukti, renunciation means mukti. Both enjoyment and renunciation are abnormal. They are two kinds of demons: enjoyment or exploitation, and eternal rest or renunciation. These two tendencies are our enemies. A higher positive life is possible only when we become fully independent of both exploitation and renunciation. So I hope this is becoming clear, because it's actually like there's so much in spiritual life, but in the end it's like very simple. There's two kind of ghosts that we are possessed by to a certain extent, and they have to be identified and rooted out. That's really the entirety of spiritual life. Everything will help us if we can see it in connection with the center. So this is the avocation of Guru Maharaj, the avocation of Rupa Goswami. He's about to quote verses by Rupa Goswami. We're Rupanuga Sampradaya. This is all coming from Rupa Goswami. Rupa Goswami is the holder of the conception of Mahaprabhu. So this is the conception of Mahaprabhu. Everything will help us if we can see it in connection with the center. That means our whole environment, literally everything, can be helpful if we can see it properly. On the other hand, the kind of exclusive renunciation practiced by the Shankarites and Buddhists is not recommended in our line. So everyone's familiar, I think, with the Shankarites and the Buddhist path. But essentially the path is one of abnegation, withdrawal, renunciation. Means there's a premise. This world is bad, and you got to get out of it. Right? Life is pain. Stop. Stop ultimately living is really the conclusion. Nirvana. Nirvana means what in Sanskrit? It means extinguishment. Like if there's a fire and you put it out, that means nirvana. Like it's, okay. And guess what? It's real. It's not false. You can go to that conscious plane of Prakriti Nirvana. You can go to absolute zero. Like if existence is that bad and you want to just like, you know what? Let me check out. Okay, you can do that. And the Shankara is very slightly different, but it's a different destination. It's called Brahma Nirvana, not Prakriti Nirvana. But Brahma Nirvana means Brahman. Means the unity principle, right? Everything is one thing. All diversity and variety is removed. And you're in neutrality, right? The absence of pain, but That's actually not the purpose of existence. The purpose of existence is anandam. So Guru Maharaj just very beautifully lays out in, again, the foreword of this book, that the world of exploitation means you're going to try to exploit someone and then you get exploited back. So you get a little bit of pleasure and then you get pain. You get a little bit of pleasure, you get a little bit of pain. That's like the negative aspect of reality, right? You're feeling some negative feeling, right? Then you have nirvana, prakriti nirvana, brahma nirvana. Those are neutrality, that's zero. But Guru Maharaj is saying, the purpose of life is not zero. The purpose of life is positivity. Beautiful title. Positive and progressive immortality. Prapanna jivanamritam. Amrita. There's actual positivity that is your birthright in life. And to move to that plane. And so many ways this is said in Sanskrit. Satyam Shivam Sundaram. Sat Chit Anandam. Right? Sat means truth. Sat actually means existence. What exists? Okay, you exist. Sat. Awareness of your existence. Chit. Consciousness. I exist and I know I exist. Okay, great. What's the point? Sat Chit Anandam. That's the point. The fulfillment of existence. Satyam Shivam Sundaram. Sundara, beauty. That's what you're looking for. Anandam, that's what you're looking for. That's why you're running around. That's why you're working. That's why you watch movies. That's why you do anything. That's why you bought a car. You're looking for beauty and fulfillment, existence. That's what we're running around doing. Where do we find it? We're concerned to harmonize things. This is Guru Maharaj saying. We're not practicing this renunciation. We're not going to nirvana. Nirvana is not a tasteful thing for the Vaishnava. We are concerned to harmonize things. That's internal harmonization. So that everything will remind us of our duty toward the Absolute. Encourage us to dedicate ourselves to Him. And a beautiful verse by Srila Rupa Goswami in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Prapanchikataya buddhya hari sambandhi vastuna. Hari sambandhi vastuna. Vastu, everyone knows Vastu, like the proper positioning of everything. Vastu Shastra. But we have to properly position ourselves. What is proper positioning? Hari Sambandhi. Everything is in relationship with the Lord. Can we find that positioning? Can we find that vastu? Mumukshubhi parityago vairagyam phalgu katyate. Anasaktasya vishayan yatarham upayunjata. Nirbandha Krishna sambandhe. Yuktam vairagyam uchate. So not vairagya, but yukta vairagya. In Krishna sambandha. Everything is in relationship with Krishna, and I will use everything in the service of Krishna. I am for Him, and everything is for Him. That's the basis of real progression in life. I'm for Him. I love that I'm for Him. Everything's for Him. I will see that everything's for Him. So, this is Guru Maharaj speaking. To neglect the environment, thinking that it is filled with undesirable material things, won't help us. This is a critical point of the line of Mahaprabhu. To neglect the environment, thinking that it is filled with undesirable material things, won't help us. That is not correct. That's Guru Maharaj's words. Everything within the environment should remind us of the absolute. Remember what we're practicing here. The International Society for Krishna Consciousness. It means you have to start to see Krishna everywhere. Be conscious of Krishna. Not emptiness, not undesirable. Krishna. In that spirit, we should move, thinking. And there's quotes around this. Accept me and connect me with the service of our Lord. And what is that a prayer to? It's a prayer to your environment. Accept me, connect me with the service of our Lord. Actually, everything's moving in His service. Can I be connected and accepted in that? That's a wonderful prayer. When the environment is seen with the correct vision, everything will help and encourage, excite us in our service to the center. So this is the basis of Saranagati. This is the basis of surrender. Everything is helping us, encouraging us, energizing us in our service, in our connection, in the fulfillment of our existence. Can we find that thread in life where we see everything positively? Gurumar says, then you will find Him. Who is at the basis of all of us. We are living in an organic whole. He says it again. We're living in an organic whole. Again, organic. Reality's alive. You're not in something dead. You're not in an objective world that's just filled with objects for you to pull and move around. It's a living system. The system is composed of the owner and the owned, the possessor of the potency and the different types of potencies. In other words, Shakti and Shaktiman. This is all very ancient Vedic knowledge, properly contextualized. Shakti and Shaktiman, that's what's existing. And we are what? What Shakti are we? Jiva Shakti, right? That's what the soul is called, Jiva Shakti. So we're also a potency of the Lord. Everything is a potency and the potent. Achintya Bheda Bheda Tattva. The Lord is within everything, and yet everything is distinct and different. This is the great mystery. This is what has to be perceived, and you're a part of that. Don't withdraw from that, and don't be a cancer unit in that. Cancer unit means bhukti. Means I'm at the center, everybody give me all the nutrition. Right? You're in a body. Contribute to it. And mukti means, I'm checking out. I'm done. I don't want to exist anymore. Well, we can read a little bit more. Honestly, this next paragraph, Mahaprabhu, Guru Maharaj is quoting Mahaprabhu's first verse of Shikshastakam. Cheto darpanam arjanam bhava mahadavagni nirvapanam. Anandam buddhivardhanam pratipadam purnamrita swadam. Sarvatma snapanam param vijayate. Shri Krishna Sankirtanam. the incredible translation of Anandam Buddhi Vardhanam Pratipadam Purnamritasvanam. What is Mahaprabhu saying is the victory of Sankirtan. Incredible vision of reality, a vision of life. The Lord's potency is dynamic. So the nature of life, of existence, is motion. It's full of motion. And ultimately we know that potency is ultimately Sri Radha, right? You know, if we read the songs of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Uma, Rama, Satya, Shachi, Chandra, Uma, Rama, Satya, Shachi, Chandra, Rukmini, Radha Avatar Sabe, Amnayavani. This is the proper Amnayavani. This is the proper revealed truth. That all the potencies are all avatars of Sri Radha. The Lord's potency is dynamic. That dynamicism is always producing rasa, or the flavor of ecstasy. So the whole thing is in motion. And it's churning out fresh taste. The fresh taste of existence. That's actually the nature of reality. You know, Guru Maharaj in another place in this wonderful, incredible, amazing book, saying the Upanishads are saying everything's nectar. Everything's in motion and producing nectar. And then he says, the stars are nectar, the river is nectar, the trees are nectar, everything's nectar. You're walling yourself off from that. The Lord's potency is dynamic, and that dynamicism means that movement is always producing rasa, or the flavor of ecstasy. The whole lila is producing ecstasy, anandam rasam. Krishna himself is the emporium of rasa, akila rasamrita murti, anandamoy vilas. Dynamic movement is a necessity in his lila. It cannot be eliminated. That movement is always producing a novel ecstasy which feeds every atom of the spiritual world. I remember we talked yesterday, the spiritual world. Spirit means consciousness. Reality is the spiritual world. If you're not seeing the spiritual world, then you're not a reality. But there's nothing that's not doesn't have its basis in the spiritual world. So everything is being fed by the Lord's potency. In that transcendental abode, Krishna is the center who attracts everything and enthuses rasa and anandam, ecstasy and joy within everything. This is the nature of the movement of the Absolute. It is not static, but dynamic, filled with movement. And that movement is pratipadam purnamrita svadanam. At every point, every step, it produces a new type of joy which is infinite. That's like the most wonderful idea of reality. Pratipada means every moment. Purna means infinity, a fullness. Amrita means nectar. So Mahaprabhu is saying, Anandam buddhivardhanam pratipada purnamrita svadanam. At every instant, a purna, a new infinity of amrita, of nectar, of joy, is being produced. That's actually what's happening in reality. And then later in here, Guru Maharaj says, a fresh, never before tasted bliss. That's the nature of reality. At every instant, the totality is producing a fresh bliss which has never before been tasted. That's the nature of reality. And then what does Mahaprabhu say? Sarvatma snapanam. Sarva atma. Every phase of yourself that you can conceive of, snapanam, is bathed in this fresh, infinite joy at every instant. Sarvatma snapanam is bathing every phase of yourself. And what is that? Param vijayate. That is the supreme victory of Sri Krishna Sankirtan. That's reality. Okay. Yeah, done.
We have a question from Manish.
Manish Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
First of all, I just want to say something about which really moved me today, where Devi said the very problem that we are trying to overcome or dodge will become a stepping stone, something in that line, and few months of recently I realized that is very true, because every time, because being a parent or in family life, problems come. Sometimes problems, they don't come or we are able to solve, and I say, oh God, thank you so much. And very next day, children will present that.
With alarming regularity.
Exactly. So I accepted that, that as a God's grace, and I was very moved by that very thing that you presented. So thank you so much for that, Deviji.
Beautiful.
And my question now is, again related, bhakti and mukti. So although I do not consider myself as the center of the universe, I have set some expectation as a parent to bring children, they should follow this and that, or anything, my friends, family, etc. And when they don't meet my expectation, then that angers me or upsets me, etc. And then I have a feeling of mukti. Oh, I'm done with them. So now, after listening to your conversation, I'm realizing, all these years I was thinking I'm on the path of bhakti. So now I'm confused. Like, okay, I'm still dealing with bhakti and mukti. So, am I allowed to experience that? Do I really need to get rid of this one completely, and then I will see the bhakti arising within me?
I'll do a quick answer.
Yeah, please.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great. Thank you. And thank you. That's a great question. This is real life.
Yeah. It's a wonderful question. It's funny because these words have to come real to us. I think that's a really important thing, because otherwise it's like, like the materialist on Wall Street is doing a lot of bhakti, and the person in orange in Varanasi is doing a lot of mukti, and I'm on the path towards bhakti, right? Like, it's very important to start to realize that if there's only 3 seats in consciousness, I'm swinging between these all day. And you're always in shelter of something. So isn't it interesting that the word Saranagati has to do with coming to shelter? You're actually taking shelter of something in consciousness all the time, right? And so we can start to trace in more and more detail, like our friendships can become, right? Like we're exploiting feeling appreciated, and then when that person doesn't do what we want them to or doesn't appreciate us appropriately, they're not our friend anymore, right? Yeah. And then they use food as an example, right? Which is a very interesting meditation on what prasad is, right? This idea that it's grace and that it's mercy coming from the Lord, right? I'm so hungry, I need to eat, right? Then we overeat. I'm never eating again. Like, this is such a horrible feeling, oh. And all of a sudden you're going like, my children, my family, my spiritual life. My spiritual life is this thing for me to try and exploit. And now we go, oh, now we're starting to actually get a little idea of waking up into what situation we're in. So the really wonderful thing, actually, about the practice of Saranagati is that it is imminently practical. And just like, like there's this, like no one goes looking for misfortune and troubles, yet they seem to find us all on their own. We don't have to necessarily like continuously search for those things, because very quickly when we feel friction with the environment, the Lord is revealing to us right there is where you actually need to make some progress. So that's really, it's a kindness of the environment. We can say Krishna is so patient with us that he's not allowing us to stay the same. And that's why the same lesson reveals itself over and over until there's some resolution, right? Because it's in consciousness, right? So it's either everywhere we go, everyone's so annoying and such a jerk and so this, until all of a sudden, like, wow, everywhere I go, there I am, right? And so all of a sudden you're starting to find that this is practical. And actually my mind is really disturbed that everyone isn't doing what I want. And I actually can't control them because I'm not the center of the universe. And now I'm like fully disturbed all the time. And that's really helpful to like have that as a jumping point, because what's interesting, especially if you study addiction, is that rock bottom, right? This idea, like you'll hear this with addicts. They'll say, when I hit rock bottom, they generally express publicly where that moment of rock bottom was for them. But the truth of the matter is, there is no such thing as rock bottom, right? So each addict can even have like a different low that they have mined before what? What has to occur in rock bottom? Rock bottom is when we find the truth. Okay, that's the only thing you can push off of to make a change, right? So the practicality of finding the truth is there must be some humility. Are we perfectly humble? No, we're hoping. And we have so much trust in the Lord that he will assist us on that journey, right? So I prayed to God for humility. He gave me experiences to not be proud of, right? These things, like this is what we're talking about. So rock bottom is where there's something to push off of. That's why they use that example of a baby uses that same floor that they're falling on all the time, becomes the place where they start to learn stability and learn how to walk. So that's the place you push off of. And then the environment is in motion. So it's not letting these like shadows stay there. And then we have options, right? We can double down, like assert more control. The amazing thing of having kids specifically is we will be very quickly revealed that we are not the controller. And there are infinite variables that are leading to you being in this situation where you're trying to assist them on their journey, and they may or may not welcome your affectionate advice. And that's important. And to even feel, actually, I remember one time my sister-in-law was asking Srila Madhusudana Maharaj, like, especially when kids are older and teenagers, like, there's different trouble. Each path has its own beautiful, glorious, amazing expression and its own obstacle, right? Which is the stepping stone to the new you. And they're like, oh, what are you going to do, like, when they're a teenager and, like, they're kind of, their minds are very assaulted. You can say that very confident. Mine is under a lot of assault. And he said, we can pray to the unseen guardians. And I was so surprised by that answer. It stayed with me, like, all these years later. And sometimes we can feel that, especially with our children. They have their own relationship with the Lord and their own journey. And Krishna is actually part of that in a way that we're not the controller of. And it's very healing. To go, oh, actually, they have their own transformation that Krishna is bringing towards them. And I'm just going to try and assist how it's possible. We're all kind of passing through, and somehow or other, we're on a little bit of a closer journey for some period of time. So to be very practical, the environment will come and reveal to us which side we're leaning on, and then gives us the opportunity to now practice the thing that was in the book. So, like, you know, when people are kind of speaking disparagingly about spiritual life or philosophy, they're saying, oh, you're a couch philosopher, right? And the wonderful thing about the environment is that it will alleviate us from being a couch philosopher, right? And actually, that's the recommendation of the scriptures, is that's one of the glories of community, right? Is it really is, because we can, like, we're reading something, we're like, the Lord is so kind. He's full of mercy. He's so amazing. And you feel like this, like, feeling of joy, and then you, like, turn the corner. It's like, well, why do you have the dishes out? You know? And then, like, you know, like, instant, and then what happened? It's revealed where we are, right? And now you have to actually have some grace and some, right? Guru Maharaj is saying we have to become liberal-minded, that plane of existence that's truly liberal will become liberal to us. We're the one in need of mercy. We're the one who's actually needy and who's, like, in forgetfulness and shadows. And we forget that. And so especially, like, when it comes to, like, asserting ourselves, this idea that, right, what does it say in Centennial Anthology? Waves of proposal are coming up from the jiva, and waves of disposal are coming from the Lord. And then the thing that you're offering to the environment is just that. It's an offering. There's a little bit more motion inside of it. And then what comes back is his grace. And all of a sudden you have a way to digest a tremendous variety of circumstances. And sometimes the things that are happening to us, they're very intense, right? Like Guru Maharaj's own words, he says, we're searching for the zenith of experience. That means, like, who you are is very dramatic. Even though we choose all these safe, protective, fearful decisions to preserve ourselves in a non-preserving game, right? Like, that's the game we're playing, right? We're all leaving. We're trying to, like, elongate it, even though we have absolutely no certainty. And so this world of surfing into uncertainty, and that actually you're craving that adventure, right? Krishna has that name, Urukrama, right? The supreme adventurer. You're in search of the supreme adventure. You're in search of a feeling. All of the things that we're doing ultimately is in search of a feeling, you know, and then you're going, like, and then the adventure comes to our doorstep, you know. And so now all of a sudden, it doesn't matter if it's the most quote unquote mundane thing, that what's coming to us, it's erupting a world inside of us, right? And to the extent that we're going, like, oh, my Lord is deeply embedded in this circumstance and I can't control it. So the thing that I'm putting into the environment is a proposal. It's so relieving. And it works in every single possible circumstance in the universe ad infinitum. It doesn't matter if your boss is possibly the most annoying person in the history of the universe. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter if your kid's doing something that's completely antithetical to every value that you have imbibed. It doesn't matter if, like, the environment is revealing itself as exactly what you didn't want. That's really nice, because otherwise, like, sometimes you can just feel like, well, if that didn't happen, then it's all over. It's all bad, right? And what we're finding is, like, and this is over and over actually in every scriptural story, every story of a saint, they're proceeding into like the most externally adverse circumstance and then speaking of the mercy of the Lord. And that's a real place in consciousness. They're not just saying that to trick us and have a bunch of exaggerate, like seva sukha dukkha parama sampada nashoye avidya dukkha. This is not coming from Bhaktivinoda Thakur as like a trick so that like your mind, you know, finally gets a second of relief so that you can then jump back into your exploited. No, this is an expression of a self-realized soul who's saying like, whether it's looking like, right, like how do you have these prayers? You know, nahi magi deho shuka vidyadana, like nahi magi swarga, right? Heaven. I don't care if you put me in heaven. Moksha. I don't want liberation from my external circumstance. This is so important. That's in this section here. There is no external environment that needs to be mandated in order for us to make progress. Wherever you are, there is that opportunity. And then Bhaktivinoda Thakur goes, and you put me wherever you want. I'm done playing this game of saying, put me in exactly this environment so that he's like, you want to put me in hell, Niroy? You want to put me in the body of something that has less consciousness? Pashu paki oye, bird, beast, all these things. I'm done playing this game on the environment where I'm constantly inflicting what I think needs to occur for my progress.
Jai.
Let me remember you. Let me speak words that are offerings towards you. Let this thing inside of me let me connect with this unstoppable affection for you. Let me love your lotus feet as much as I now love the objects of my senses. These are true prayers. And they're like, we have our whole expression of our lifetime to reciprocate because they're setting the standard for what's a prayer and how to actually interact with the environment and the world where we're trying to control everything is imminently unsatisfying. But we can propose something. And then what comes back again, right? That's so in the world of self-sacrifice, we're getting burnt, right? Sacrifice means something's going. That's the nature of sacrifice. There is no parent, not even good parents. All parents, practically speaking, as long as they're involved, are performing sacrifice. It's the nature of this universe that we're in. And then some new self is coming. That new self is offered. Some prashad is coming, some grace is coming, some new sacrifices, then like starting to see motion. And then we'll actually have something that's where wisdom's coming from, right? Because age does not equal wisdom. Right? We have to learn that. Like the passing of time doesn't mean that the depths are being mined, right? And so then you're going, oh, well, why is there this emphasis on like the old elderly and the old cultures of the world? Very important to respect your elders. Like, well, because if they're actually imbibing that world of sacrifice and being reconceived and reforged, that person's advice is a shortcut through reality. And it's our like good fortune, it's our honor, it's our like wondrous joy that we may come in proximity to the wisdom that comes from their mouth. Right? Because then we go, oh, such a thing is possible. And you're affirming faith in such a wonderful way. So we want to try to imbibe that and know that there's not the tiniest of detail that's outside of that. Like, you know, like when our toddler whips a glass across the room and shatters the last glass in the house because they like to. That's not out of his will. There's some purpose in going through that. And that's very helpful. And then also your family life, your work life, your temple life, all of a sudden, all of these things become a unified whole. That's also very healing. We are cautioned to not think like that, right? The Lord's inside of all of those people. He's inside of every single person that we're interacting with. And actually, it's very wonderful because otherwise we feel kind of fractured, like, oh, this is my material life. This is my work life. This is sometimes realizations come to you in the midst of this artificial category that we've thrown. It's just life. It's just reality expressing itself through the moments of your day, right? And some realization can come to you right in the middle of that in a very unexpected place. So it's very nice to become attentive to that in your whole life. And then wherever you are, there's like that kind of attentiveness that's occurring. That's like so nice. Otherwise, we feel like we're wasting time in our material life. And then this is just another drag on my energy until I get to my quote unquote spiritual, whatever that is, like all these like categories. And we're cautioned from that kind of feeling. And it's so nice. It's really happy. Oh, like some service, like we get service to people. Really, devotees don't like to accept service. They don't even like to accept compliments. It's complicated. So devotees accept service really in two parts of their life, when they're very, very little and when they're very old. So it's our honor if we get to take care of them when they're very little and when they're very old. It's like that's our good fortune.
That's nice.
Yeah. So anyways, I hope that's helpful.
Sorry.
So an art and liberated state is really not important to kind of focus, is that? Rather focus on glorification as a one thing. If that's clear what I'm trying to.
Yeah.
Uh,
I'll say one super quick sentence.
Because tendency of the sadhaka is to always to correct, is that actually to not focus on that correction, but rather focus on glorification. That's what we basically
I'd say like
our life is about.
there's a radical responsibility that needs to be imbibed. So we do need to have a bit of a look at the monsters that rear their faces in the mirror as we go through the obstacles that are presented to us. There's a verse here in Prapanajivanamritam. Bhakti Lalita quotes it, and it's one of her favorite verses of all time. It's an amazing verse. It says, which this whole book is it's sectioned into the limbs of Saranagati, right? So it's very important to remember that. It says, when a soul is on a journey and they finally realize that they are the cause of their own situation, but they are unable to extricate themselves. So I feel like our responsibility is radically responsible to try and adjust ourselves. But what we find very quickly is we're almost unable to actually adjust ourselves. It says, when a soul is on a journey and they find themselves, I'm the cause of this situation, but I'm still addicted to everything. I'm still addicted to my own nature, right? Like whatever our preferred addiction is, like we're addicted to being angry. We're addicted to inflicting ourselves on the environment and having this reaction, right? It's not just like one level of waking up is, oh, I have a pattern. But then we start to realize this pattern is very entrenched. Like we have mantras that we're chanting inside of our mind that are not necessarily the Maha Mantra. Okay. Like we're existing within mantra. So like these patterns, and they're actually one general mantra, and is I am the heroic victim of my circumstance. Okay. That's the mantra that we're living within for the most part. Okay. So one, we do have to be radically responsible. Yeah, sorry. It's in a minor. It's really sad. I'm the heroic victim of my circumstance and everything else is bad around me. Okay, so one, we do have a responsibility to see within ourselves to whatever extent, right? Gormarsh's own words, Gormarsh's words. To the extent that we can see the flaws within ourselves is the treasure that we have. Okay, so that does not mean we're shying away and just like, oh, it's pretty over there. Like, you know, it's like, yes, I am with some error. Right. And if you start to think of this in the positive way, there's something that's like our ego is like allergic to this conversation. It is just like, let's talk about anything else. But you have to start to pay attention to people that are good at things. Okay. You have to pay attention to like the prodigies of the universe, right? You listen to them play an instrument and and like you'll listen and you're crying, you're in shock. You're like, oh my God, what did you do? What came out of your hands? You know, and they're like, did you hear in that one section? I miss it every time. What are they doing? They're seeing the flaw in their own expression. They're becoming experts at seeing their own flaw. And what's happening is they're becoming amazing. And the whole world is seeing that. You have to become expert at seeing your own flaws. Okay? When you're starting to run faster, you're starting to eat differently. You're waking up differently. You're going to sleep differently. And you're doing everything you can to cut 15 seconds off of that mile. Okay? Like you're saying, what did Gurudev say? Like you're lifting weight. If it's not hard, you're not getting stronger. Okay, like if you go to the gym and you're doing like a 1 pound weight, like, whoa, you know, like you are not getting ripped. So you're starting to see the error in your nutrition, in your sleep, in your this, in your that. Okay, now there's connoisseurs of consciousness. Okay, that's what we're talking about. And they're starting to see the error in their own expression, in their own relationship with reality. They're starting to develop a fine-tuned instrument of seeing change within themselves. Okay? This is called a sophisticated person. Oh, my Lord is giving me this input. How am I going to, by divine providence, this specific circumstance is coming to me. How can I see his grace inside of it? What transformation can I serve to this situation? And the whole Mahabharata, what is it full of? Very complicated situations where they're wrestling with these ideas. What's the correct thing to do? Okay, we're the kings of the world. We're going to go into hiding for 14 years. We're the best warriors that the universe has ever seen. We're going to live under a tree. You know, like, and in that moment, that's the expression they need. Okay, so you become a connoisseur. So to answer your question, okay, you have to start to become a connoisseur and an ability seer. But then on the path, we realize how addicted we are. And that's like this very humiliating moment where we realize, like, as much as I'm trying to become so strong and see my own error, I feel very hopeless actually to change that thing. And then in that verse in Prapana Jivanamritam, Krishna says, I myself rise like the morning sun, and I dissipate all of those last things that are haunting you. So total hope, right? That's the in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is saying, Dadami buddhi yogam tam. I will give you the intelligence by which you find me. And actually, he's involved with every aspect of our resurrection. He is the principle of guru that is coming through every single situation, so affectionately, so carefully, assisting us with our own malalignment, right? So then he is involved. Who are we to actually try to, we've dug ourselves in almost to the point of total hopelessness, but never, right? Because the Vaishnava anthem, the Gaudiya anthem, Mahaprabhu's anthem is, there is nowhere that his mercy cannot pierce. There is no depth, right? There is this quote, there is no sin in the entire universe that cannot be purified by the holy name. It's not an exaggeration. You know, we can think of some fairly sinful things that seem that there is no returning point from, and it's not true. Yeah. So nothing's fixed. It's all in motion. Throwing ourselves, and ultimately Krishna is the person that burns whatever we are unable to do. He fills that gap. So
How do you? Okay.
Sudarshan Prabhu ki jai. Shri Gurudev, Shri Guru Maharaj ki jai. All the assembled devotees ki jai. And we just wanted to comment, we want to acknowledge everyone that's online, but also there was a beautiful comment there by Bimal Krishna Prabhu. And he says, I'm reflecting on my own practice of Saranagati, and I find it difficult to always try and see Krishna in the environment. It makes me think of a part of the illumination of of verse 3 of Upadeshamrita by Srila Guru Maharaj on page 85. He says, a real sadhu is a concrete thing to us. Everything is almost abstract, but a sadhu is a concrete thing. In their heart we shall find existing feelings surcharged with God consciousness, and it is something tangible. We can converse with each other. That will seem to be something tangible. Otherwise, almost everything is abstract. Jai for the devotees of the Lord. Dandavats to you all.
Okay,
Jai.
and everyone knows verse 3 of Upadeshamrita, of course, right? He's talking about the symptoms of love between a devotee and Guru Maharaj, saying Dadati pratigrihnaati guhyamakyati prachiti bhunkte bhojayate chaiva shadvidam priti lakshanam. And this, when Guru Maharaj is speaking and talking about in the purport for verse 3, he's talking about that bhunkte, the guhyamakyati prachati, like this idea that we're going to share with each other, even our most private, our most, innermost doubts, our innermost feelings, our innermost, can say what we're feeling on our progress. We're going to share this with each other. And then that becomes very tangible when we can speak with one another. And another beautiful place, Guru Maharaj says, Sankirtan means we have friends in the boat. So we're all sharing our own hearts with each other in the worship of our Guru Varga. And that's very tangible for all of us. So, Dandavats.